Happy Wednesday, everyone! Happy Wednesday, happy Wednesday, happy Wednesday. It's your girl, Angel Monique Guice. Thank you so much for joining me. I have a guest on here, special guest. His name is Montoya. He's going to be joining us. Hello, everyone tuning in. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. I hope you guys are having an amazing Wednesday. Of course, you guys know that I do my lives on Tuesdays, but for the past 2 weeks, I've been having to do it on Wednesday because I just finished wrapping up a film, which I'm going to be excited to tell you about shortly. So y'all stay tuned for that, but I have a special guest who will be joining us. Hello.
Hey, how you doing, Queen?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great.
Good. Nice to see you on here.
Oh, yes, I know, no doubt. Definitely good to see you.
How you feeling today?
Again, I'm feeling excellent. This is my second broadcast today, so glad to be getting the word out about the Mental Dialogue Community Club. So appreciate you.
Yeah. You had another meeting or review today?
Well, it wasn't necessarily directly related to this, but it was just I'm always trying to connect people in the community, and so I did a dialogue about insurance and how it can assist our communities. I'm all about all about our community, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Well, let's just jump right in. Why don't you go ahead and start off with your name and just tell the people who you are. First of all, before you do that, thank you so much for accepting the request to join my live and allow me to introduce you to my audience and let everyone know how dope you are and who you are, okay?
All right, sounds good. No, absolutely. Appreciate you. Again, my name's Montoya Smith, aka Black Socrates. I am the founder and curator of the Mental Dialogue Community Club. But ultimately, our goal is to create a virtual, nationwide neighborhood where African Americans trade ideas, goods, services, and the way we do that is via podcast, via social media, and before COVID, we would have live events as well. But at the end of the day, I just ultimately consider myself a connector and serve as an intermediary to help people get what they need based on, what they need, wherever they at. And our motto is, all I ask is that you think. And the concept is raising awareness to reignite the commitment to excellence in the Black conscience. So that's pretty much everything in a nutshell.
Okay. And so what made you want to come up with this idea? What made you want to get into doing that specifically?
Yeah, well, yeah, I know. I consider myself a writer. I will be coming out with my first book this year. I'm working diligently on.
Congratulations.
But writers write. So I've been writing for years. Even whether I was going to come out with something. Anyway, in 2008, I ended up writing this piece. Again, just something I would randomly write, and I wrote this piece, and in the piece, I was exploring why do African immigrants specifically, a lot of immigrants, but specifically African immigrants, why they could come to the country, or why did they want to come to the United States? And to a degree, they saw this as a land of opportunity, or as America is promoted as the land of milk and honey, if you will.
Yeah.
And so because they had that perspective, and I had met some here in the Atlanta area, I'm not from here, but I lived here since 2003. And so they would have their own, some of them have their own business, or they would congregate together, and their perspective, I got to know some of them. And in writing that piece, I was like, why, in general, not all of us, but in general, why were African Americans blocked from their view? And as I thought about it, I realized it was the psychology. So in all reality, I wrote that piece not knowing that it would blossom into the Mental Dialogue Community Club, if you will. But I always tell people that piece was the birth of the Mental Dialogue Community Club, because it was shortly thereafter that I approached the owner of Fadeologist, Jay, Brother Jay, the owner of Fadeologist. I approached him there not soon thereafter and says, "Hey man, can I just do something in the barbershop?" And just start discussing issues that affect our community. And so, but again, and I called it, I don't know how I came up with the name Mental Dialogue at the time, but that piece birthed this community club.
Wow. And when you say piece, it was like a script or
just something I wrote, and like I'm always writing. So I just write pieces. I always share with my friends. All my friends have been saying for years, you need to put a book out or I write poetry, just writers write. You can't help it, right?
Right.
Like you do productions. I'm pretty sure there's a whole bunch of stuff you've written that nobody's ever heard or seen. So I would just write. I call them commentaries now. So like when my book comes out, it's going to be called Just My 3 Cents. And it's just a bunch of commentaries that I've written, maybe even similar to that piece or whatever. Now that I think about it, I think I probably should add that piece to this book. I hadn't even thought about that part. But it's usually commentaries on current events. It could be on all kind of stuff. But my goal is to try to make people think. At the end of the day, critical thinking is something that's lost on the country in general. However, I think if you're able to critically think, you can get through anything. And so if I can raise awareness, connect people together, somehow it ended up being a business. It was a hobby, and I turned it into a business about 6 or 7 years ago.
Wow. And you said you're not from, where are you from?
I'm from South Carolina originally.
South Carolina.
Yeah, a little small town. Or like I like to tell people, I'm from the thriving metropolis of Honea Pass, South Carolina, with no McDonald's. 3 stoplights. 3 stoplights. But it's a thriving metropolis in my eyes.
Come on through there. Come on through. Okay.
Oh, it ain't gonna take long. You might, you might miss it.
Okay. And who inspires you, Montoya? Like, who inspires you to do this type of work? Like, I mean, first of all, it's a great that you're doing this, like trying to, just first of all, being in the Black community and just trying to educate us and our friends. It's a joy to see us do that, to try to connect, us and be of some type of servant. So what made you who inspired you to do this?
No, absolutely. My all-time hero is Malcolm X. I came across the autobiography of Malcolm X by accident my summer going into my 8th grade year of middle school. I've read it 3 times since, probably read over 10 plus books on Malcolm. Mm-hmm. And it was just his commitment to our people was something that I admired. And it always inspired me. I didn't know I was going to be doing this, if you will, or whatever. But I've always, in a sense, tried to stay connected and give back and things of that nature. And one thing that is a part of mental dialogue that comes particularly from Malcolm is Malcolm, when he was in prison, he would take place in prison debates. Mm-hmm. And he said his secret to being, he was very good at it, but he said his secret to being very good at it is before he would prepare a debate, he would always prepare the other side first. So he would actually make the argument as he was preparing based on the other side first before. And so it gave me the idea of look at things from the other side. And so that's what we specialize with. We do a radio show every Saturday morning, the events. But anytime you come to mental dialogue, I tell people we specialize in the art of consideration, which right. Which is considering what the other side says. We're there's no critical thinking if all we're doing is yelling beliefs at each other. So we love to do, we do hard conversations on race, sex, gender, and business in the African American community. Hard conversations, the ones people are afraid to have, but we do it well because we start out with, literally 2 rules. Political correctness is outlawed. That's the number 1 rule. And the second one is bring your passion, but be respectful. And so if we could do that, we can dialogue about hard issues, and we ask people to consider what the other side is saying or why they're saying it, not necessarily to agree, but a lot of times we won't consider that people actually have logic for even things that we think they shouldn't believe, or we're already like, why do they think that? And if you listen, sometimes you can learn something.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I know it's good that you take that approach to listen to other people's perspective instead, because I know a lot of times we don't like, us as just humans in general, we don't like to listen. Sometimes it's good to just listen and hear the other person's point of view and just see exactly where they're coming from. I think that's great because I know for myself in general, I like to try to understand people. And I feel like once you kind of understand exactly where they're coming from and where they've been, you can kind of assess a lot more,
Absolutely. I always say, I go by the name Black Socrates, so I consider myself a modern day philosopher, if you will. Yeah. And so one thing that I always say in reference to this very thing is the truth rarely lives on the edges. Mm. But if you think about most dialogues, people are coming from the extreme of that truth. The answer typically, in most cases, is always in the middle, and not necessarily right in the middle, but even if what you think or maybe you have most of the facts, sometimes the piece of information that you don't know if you listen, is on the other side. So in that sense, you still have to meet in the middle to actually understand what the truth really is. But because we're so stuck on the extremes of believing this is true, or either this is true or that is true, the truth is usually both, a little bit of both.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself a debater?
Yeah, too. Yeah, I mean, most people would consider me that, and I do as well. I think I'm more. I personally, and people, I've actually been brought in to do this. I'm actually more of a moderator. That's the role I like to play more so. I enjoy a good debate, absolutely, but I prefer actually to be a moderator between two opposing sides, and that's what I love to do. And or on the show, sometimes I will play devil's advocate intentionally just to force the thought, the thinking, you know what I mean? And then what happens is, but due to doing that, sometimes people assume that even the question, people assume where you're coming from. And I have to say, no, that's just the question.
Right.
The question is typically, you can't assume where I'm coming from when I'm asking the question. Just answer the question, and then let's dialogue. But a lot of people will assume what side you are on based on the question. We do our shows in the form of a question, but we use it for marketing. Any show that we do is in a form of a question, and usually there's two sides to that question.
What would you say has been your most challenging question or topic that you can think of?
Whew, we do a lot of hard ones.
Yeah, like give me at least two, because I know you. Because even the name in itself, like, or the I guess the phrase, like, I only ask that you think, like, that's just a whole thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, in itself.
I like to think.
No, absolutely. And let me say this about the name, and I'll give you a couple topics. One definitely comes to mind, and I'll try to think of another one. But like I say with the motto, all I ask is that you think. There's a lot of it's mental dialogue, the community club, but there's a lot in the name itself, mental dialogue.
Yes.
So what we're saying is, if we can improve the conversation inside your own head, you will be better. Therefore, the community will be better. Yeah. So even within the name itself, we're saying a lot. And then the motto is, all I ask is that you think. Because again, critical thinking will help you solve a lot of problems. But to answer your question, last year, one of our big topics is toxic masculinity BS or not? It was an amazing. Is toxic masculinity BS or not? Or is it, is it B? I don't know if I can cuss on your thing.
Do your thing.
But I'm just saying, what's how it was worded? Is toxic masculinity BS or not? Okay. So that was just to the concept of toxic, when we were delving on it from both sides, because people kind of have an assumption of what it is. If you think of hearing that term all the time, toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
So people kind of have a what it is, and they're pretty strong about it. But the dialogue we had probably will surprise people what the answer ends up coming. Now, I'm saying that there is an answer, but I promise you that show really surprised people based on what they thought it was by the end of the show versus what they thought it was by the end of the show.
And from that dialogue, what did you learn from it? Like, what did you learn about people's thinking of it, and what it was, and what they thought it was?
Okay. Yeah, I got you. And it was like, I guess my guest and my audience makes the show. But the thing that I learned myself in particular, because as a moderator, I'm bringing on guests and I'm learning them too. So that's a great question. I realized, and it was one of the guests that was kind of pointing this out, that a lot of times what we assume or say something is, a lot of times I like to get into stats and get into the numbers. So a lot of things that we say are not backed up. The data does not back up things that we believe. Like for example, like I'm just saying, like, for example, say men that rape women or whatever, right? Or whatever. So obviously that's a horrible act or whatever. But I remember the guest that was on the show was saying, like, those men are rapists. They're terrible, and the entire society has a concept of how they see them. If they're accused or caught for that, they're put in jail.
Yeah.
And the point that I'm just using that as an example, because that's used as an example of toxic masculinity, and there's a concept of rape culture and things of that nature. And so what he was saying was, he said, the way I carry myself, you're not going to lump me under that umbrella because of these bad actors.
Mm-hmm.
And and so what he was just saying, that a lot of the terminologies can be used, and they paint a broad brush versus distinguishing who actually has those traits.
Yeah.
And without distinguishing it, now you start painting a broad brush to apply. And he was just saying, using his own self as an example, was just saying, you can apply this broad brush to me, and why would I have to answer for bad actors over here? I'm not going to answer for bad actors.
But he didn't create.
Yeah,
he didn't do the act himself, right? Is that
right? Exactly. He's just saying that. So yeah. So when you come up with terms that now he's saying having dialogues where people who would never do these things.
Yeah.
Why am I having to have a dialogue about something that I wouldn't approve of?
Right.
I would stamp it. I would stuck. Those people can't even come around me. But we're going to have a conversation about what those, as he calls them, roaches, what those roaches are doing.
Okay.
And so he's just saying sometimes different terms should start applying, and now people that would never do those things are having to answer for the roaches, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that was eye-opening for me, just from the standpoint whereas I was, in a sense, buying into it, but then when he breaks it down, and not just, he broke it down by the numbers, so I'm not going to try to bring those numbers back up, but it was kind of like, yeah, it makes no sense to apply something in a broad brush manner and have these long dialogues when the actual actors that are the culprits of this stuff are not in the room. And typically we already have a way that we handle these things in society. But I'm just using that as one example of what we talked about on that show.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense, but it was definitely dope during the show.
Okay. Yeah, it totally makes sense to me. I'm listening and putting it to it. Do you have another one you can share, or?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Let me see. Trying to think of some of my top shows all time. Like one of my top shows of all time is probably like in the top 5 is what can African Americans learn from the Asian American community? Mm-hmm. That's one of my top 5 shows of all time. One of my favorite shows. My most important show is Do Black Men Hate Their Women? That's my most important show I've ever done.
That is loaded. Wow. What made you even? Why?
So, and I obviously encourage people to go find the $1 Million Hour podcast, because all these shows are on.
I'm gonna put everything.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying they're I know you will, but I'm just saying I'm gonna encourage people to go find the podcast. Ultimately, that show, I've been wanting to do it for years. I've been doing the show for about a little over 5 years now, but that show was about 3 years ago, I think.
Okay.
But I still consider it the most important show we ever done. I brought on a sister she's in she was a psychologist teacher or whatever. Yeah, and a couple other people as well. But ultimately, I wanted to explore to a degree the history of this level of hatred that I think, to a degree, that some men, or a lot of African American men, are not aware of. Because I think it has a lot of historical context. Again, we are meant to dialogue. Ultimately, out of everything I said, ultimately what we're doing is trying to deal with a lot of psychological trauma that we have really never been allowed to deal with in this country. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, to a degree, I think some traumas can be passed down. If you never think about them, you never work your way out of them. Right. And so I think there's a historical context for, I really think it comes more from shame, not so much that we hate our women, right? But I think there's a historical context of shame from the day we were brought to these shores that we've never thought about, that we've never explored. And I think some of the actions that we need to be aware of that shame in order to not live it out. Yeah. And I think a lot of it's being lived out because we're unaware. And let me make it very clear, in my opinion, the original shame comes from our ancestors literally being brought here and not being able to protect their women. I think our sisters have long forgiven us for it through our collective consciousness. I don't know that we know that. And so in our aim to be men, obviously in a country that hasn't always recognized us as such, and our aim to do so, plenty of great brothers out there, but in our aim, being unaware of that original shame doesn't play out in the best of ways.
Wow.
So I don't want to sound like, definitely don't want to sound contradictory to what I just told you about the other show, but I just consider it one of the most important shows I've ever done, because I think once you understand that, it makes us literally become the protectors that we should be, and literally makes us willing to die for our women. And I don't know if that's something that young brothers are being raised with, especially in our communities, without having models to raise us into our manhood. I think in most around the world, you don't just become a man, you're trained into it. And so we know, in a lot of cases, that's missing. And so I think getting past that original shame would help send us in the right direction. So I know I'm saying a lot, but I would definitely encourage people to go find, just literally go mental dialogue, do black men hate their women? Just Google that, and part 1, and there's a part 2 to that show we did a few years later. I'm pretty sure it'll come up.
Is it in, like, is any of your shows visual? Like, can you do it on YouTube?
Nah, all my stuff is audio. Yeah. So what happens is you can grow the show more with visuals, because that's the way people like to be served mentally. It's just our nature. It feeds our dopamine centers, if you will. Yeah. But our conversations are, honestly, they're too deep to lose you not listening.
Yeah.
So by it being only an audio show, we don't reach as many, but we're more effective with those we reach.
Yes, I love that.
Especially the type of shows we're doing, they're deep. They're not. You know what I mean? Like we might every now and then we might put up a salacious question, but once you get to the show, it's gonna be intellectually. You know what I mean? It's gonna be like, we might put up something crazy, like, every time I get my listeners like, I can't believe you put it up, because they think of the show as a, kind of highly intellectual, intelligent show, which it is. Yeah. But every now and then I'll put something out there, and they'd be like, I can't believe y'all are talking about that. I say, well, look, when you get on the show, we're not gonna be doing love and hip hop. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Okay. So, I got a 2-part question. These 2 questions popped up in my head as you were talking. First of all, I just commend you for even just being bold enough to just have these conversations, because sometimes we're so ashamed, and so, like, we don't want people to know what we think or how we think, or, sometimes we can get discouraged of what we think people will think about us, of what we think, if that makes sense.
Right. No, it does make sense. That's why we do sexual abuse shows, domestic violence shows. We don't leave nothing. Only thing we don't touch, now I'll touch them personally, but not on the show. We don't touch religion and politics very little. Probably 2 to 4 shows in a year. Okay. But other than that, we touch everything.
Well, can I ask you, why not? Why don't you touch on those topics as much?
So, no, absolutely. So again, as I told you from the beginning, we practice the art of consideration. And so the 2 places where people will not listen and their beliefs are very high are politics and religion. Yeah. And so if our goal is to practice the art of consideration, so we can do those dialogues, and we would actually grow the show more if we did more political shows, for example, because that's popular, right? Yeah. So we could grow the show more doing that. And like I said, we do them, but just very little. But ultimately, we're not going to practice what we preach there. Right. Because what happens is, in those 2 arenas, it's just 2 sides yelling their beliefs at each other, not really listening or whatever. But when we do the political shows, we'll bring on someone from the left, someone from the right, and an independent, so that we do have all the perspectives at least presented. And so we do try to do a show where it's not a bunch of back and forth, but sometimes we will, or if, something's coming up or something happened, we'll do a political show here and there. I'd say at the Middle Dialogue Community Club, our discussions, we don't mind if people, in a sense, bring up their religion or use their religion to present their argument. That kind of stuff doesn't bother us. We just don't lead with that as a topic, if that makes sense.
Okay. Noted. Got it. That makes sense.
Because we welcome all belief systems, we welcome, because in order to get their opinions, we welcome all opinions. Like we don't do groupthink. Like I've been thinking about that. Like I'm finna make a new promotion, or just something to start promoting the fact that we don't do groupthink at all. We're not gonna, as much as we're worried about our community, as conscious as we choose to be, there is no groupthink in Middle Dialogue. We are the place where unlike-minded people come together.
Yeah. I like that, unlike-minded people come. I like that. Oh, you just made me think.
Hey, that's what I do. That's what we do. That's what we do.
Okay,
I'm
wait.
so glad to be on here. Well, what was your next question? Go ahead, Queen.
Um, 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 it was a two-part question because you mentioned something that you that was going to run into this question, which was, do you only do dialogue that's specifically based on the black community, and how important is research to the dialogue?
No, absolutely. So to a degree, I think for the most part, as much as I say I'm a moderator, I think for the people that follow or listen regularly, I'm an avid researcher. So the research is key if we're trying to get to the truth, right?
Yeah,
And so as I mentioned a little earlier, I said a lot of times we'll believe things that are not supported by data. So I was already kind of going there not knowing this was going to be a question or whatever. But for the most part, we definitely try to bring a lot of data to these dialogues, because again, it can get you to the truth despite what you may believe, or despite what you've heard all your life. A lot of things that we're saying or believing in our lives, whether we recognize it or not, it's just been repeated over and over.
yeah.
And there may be no data to back it up. And then, so we are definitely, we are data driven as much as possible. Some subjects you can't be, you know what I mean? That comes from time to time, but if we can bring the data to the table, we definitely do that. And I'm sorry, I'm really jumping to the second part of your question. The first part of your question was just simply, say it again if you don't mind, so make sure I'm
The
answering.
research. Is it the dialogue or mental dialogue? Are you your dialogues based on
Focused on the black community.
the black?
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So what happens is a lot of the topics definitely are focused on our community, but a lot of the business topics, like I have this one of my guys is in my we have a mastermind group as well. We just started that a few months ago.
Okay.
That's going super well.
Good.
But one of the guys from the mastermind, Dwayne Drawn, he said years ago when he was on my show, prior to us having the mastermind on my show, we were doing a show about hiding black. It was hiding, like something about like black businesses.
Okay.
Hiding while black. It was kind of like it's like the title of like, you got a business, but you maybe put it up as not a black business to draw more business, something to that effect.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that was the show we were doing, and I remember we had Dwayne Drawn on, and I'm like, so I got the title a little off, but what he said was, for him, he's never even considered the concept of doing black business. He's just doing business.
Yeah.
So I bring that to the table when you ask that question. A lot of our business topics, we may say, let's help black businesses scale. That might be the question or whatever. But at the end of the day, we're just teaching our businesses how to do business.
Yeah.
So a lot of the business topics, while obviously trying to help out our community, if you will, in reality, anybody listening for business is going to learn, you know what I mean? But obviously we'll bring up some ideas that are unique or unique challenges to black businesses. So yeah, most of the topics are about us, but not 100%.
Gotcha.
Some of them are broad and general.
Gotcha. Okay, and then do you have a team, or is it like how do you like decipher, like do you do the research yourself, or do you have someone that you have a person that does the research, or you know what I mean? Like,
no, I got you. Yeah, I love researching, so I do the research, myself for the most part, as far as that goes. But as far as the show, I have a cadre of. I'll make sure there's always a woman's voice on the show, because men love to debate, right? But I always make sure there's a woman voice on the show, and so I have a cadre of sisters who guest co-hosts. I call them the queens of intellect. They're all dynamic sisters in their own right, and so I bring them on the show to keep me in check. You know what I mean? So, whoever the guest may be. And then, so I have the Queens of Intellect. They help me do the actual show.
Okay.
And then when we're doing the live event, I had a circle who might help me with the live events. But right now, we're not doing them. So right now, everything we're doing is on Zoom and on the show.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Two more questions, and I'm gonna let you go.
Okay, it's all good. I want to say this before. Well, I'll tell them at the end. And let me ask you, I want to tell you how we connected. I want to tell people that real quick.
Sure.
But we'll finish the questions, and I'll tell them that after the questions.
Okay, cool. Okay, so the question. Oh, is this your passion? Would you consider this
without question.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, without question. So people a lot of times say, well, how long have you been doing it or whatever? So when I told you about the writing the piece, starting the event, and it was kind of like a hobby in the barbershops. So like that, we had gotten to where we were in coffee shops and things of that nature. But, for a lot of years, we were just in the barbershop, didn't have a radio show. But But anyway, people say, well, when did you start it? So basically I did the first barbershop event in 2008. But then I tried to go, I was in sales for like 10 years, and I tried to go into corporate sales for a couple of years. And so during that time, I shut it down because I was, just trying to get my career off the ground and, try to make my mind, try to get into the music industry. So I was coming out of the music industry and, didn't really get all the way in or whatever. And from the business side. But anyway, so I tried to go into corporate sales. And so for 2 years, I was so busy with that, I didn't have time to do anything. And then the irony of it all is I ended up getting fired for something I didn't do. And it was a very difficult situation. But what that taught me, I got let go for something I didn't do, but it taught me all the time that I put in to try to build that career. I realized even if I do other things, I have to take jobs that allow me to do this passion. Because that 2 years off, like that, especially getting let go for something I didn't do, was like a big reminder. You can't just do something without having some passion for it. Now, I enjoyed the sale that I was doing, but just to have that happen and be controlled by somebody else, it was like, I'll never take a job that makes me work so much that I can't do this passion. So since that time, I still do. I have to do a bunch of side jobs because obviously doing something like this is very different. It's been a business for about 6 or 7 years, and that's just been at the encouragement of of people that are in the community club. We didn't call it a community club years ago, but they encouraged, like, you got to turn this into something. You got to turn this into something. So I basically tried to turn my passion into a business, and I'm still figuring it out. I think we are just now hitting our stride, believe it or not. In 2020 of all years, we were starting to hit our stride. I had a goal of doubling my membership in 2020. That part didn't happen, but it was like all the other things that happened, I think now have positioned us to double our membership, and people are now joining at the higher levels because we got different levels of memberships. If you got a business, you can advertise on the show, like we do commercials on the show and things of that nature. We do Zoom events where we feature a Black online. I'm hoping I'll tell you about that at the end. I think you had one more question, so I don't want to.
Yes, the last one. So that was not really a question. I just wanted you to kind of leave like some last words of encouragement to people who are like you, who are, entrepreneurs and just doing, in your passion and encouraging people, and like just anything that you want to say to the people to encourage them, inspire them.
Yeah, no doubt. I'll encourage you with something that I'm trying to pin down on myself and get better at. I have like an amazing, basically at the end of the day, I think I said at the very beginning, I'm a connector, right? Like that's what I do. Whatever. But what I would say is, in making these connections and being able to assist people to go further along with their goals, whether it's buying a home, learning about investments, insurance, we just got all these experts, like A1 people, top notch. We have dynamic Black businesses doing their thing. You can find them with our community club. As I said, we want to be a virtual neighborhood. So to bring it back around to your question, I say all that to say that as passionate as I am, this is my life. I'll never give it up again. What I've been connected to one specific person, Terry Simmons, is a dude, this amazing business consultant. I bring him on the show all the time because he just gives gems all the time. And so what I'm now pinning down on is, as passionate as I am about this, to turn this into something that can literally have capacity, maybe that can be passed down. I have to focus on the nuts and bolts, the stuff that I don't enjoy about the business. And so when you say the words of encouragement to entrepreneurs, if it is your passion, that will keep you from stop doing it, because at the end of the day, you can't have success if you stop doing it. But these are the things you've heard all the time. Those type of encouragements are all over the internet and social media, but there's nobody encouraging you to go do the stuff you don't want to do. The nuts and bolts, the boring stuff. And so if you're gonna have something that's where you're not gonna be just self-employed, for the most part, I am with this, if you will, and some other businesses that I have. If you want to move out of self-employment, the nuts and bolts gives you capacity to move out of that. So my encouragement is as much as you're passionate about it, that'll keep you going. But if you want to scale it, it's the nuts and bolts, the things you don't want to do, the people you don't want to pay for, whether it's an accountant, a social media person. You're doing it all yourself because your passion lets you do it. But scaling will require that eventually you pay for those people. So that's my encouragement to entrepreneurs out there. do something that you're passionate about, but it's the parts you don't want to do that will help you scale.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. That's real good. Ooh, that's good. Okay. Okay. So yeah, that was it for me, but I know you wanted to speak about how we got it, how we met.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So what's so dope about us even doing this live? I mean, I'm assuming you remember this, but yeah, you know, like I said, it was something passionate about. I forget what event it was, but it was something that we ended up meeting, like almost kind of in happenstance at the end of the event. Yeah. But it was something, you know, something encouraging about the African American community, whatever the event was. That part I don't remember.
Yeah.
But as usual, as I'm there, I'm meeting people and letting them know, telling them about mental dialogue, because I was always at that time we were doing a monthly event.
Yeah.
You know, at that time I might have been in the coffee shops by that time.
I think yeah.
Okay, so anyway, so I'm running into you on the way out, you know, beautiful sister. So, you know, but again, you know, hey, I like beautiful sisters. Anyway, with that said, so, but I'm I'm in sale mode, so I ain't even trying to holler at you, nothing like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I give you real talk. Yeah. I'm like, hey, got this, I'll give you a flyer or whatever. Yeah. And you was like, I'm about to move to LA.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You says I would come, but I'm about to move to LA. Now, of course, everybody tells me they will come, right? Even the people, you know, whatever, most of them don't show up, right? But you was like, yeah, you know, whatever, I'll keep up with you. I want to know whatever. And so I think I got your number or something, because I always ask people to add to my text list.
Right.
So for you, because you were leaving, I don't know why I would have done that. I don't know if the show was started at that time. But what I do remember is you were literally leaving. So you said, but I do come back here from time to time. So maybe when I come back, I'll check you out.
Yeah.
So with all that said, that was probably 5 years. When did you move to LA? When did you move? That's when it was.
2016 is when I moved.
Okay, so in 2016 you moved. So we've stayed in contact that entire time.
Yes.
To now in 2021, I'm on your live.
Yes.
This is, you know what I'm saying? Like just even the fact that we stay, because I've watched you and I you know, send you a text, say I like what you're doing, I love what you're doing, because you told me you were going out there to try to blossom into your career. I'm watching you. I'm loving every move you make. Them dance classes are dope. You know what I mean? You're dope. But I was just thinking so cool that, you know, just literally just little minimal contact through social media all these years has led to, you know, you coming around. I think I did invite you to one of my connections events. So I'm still going to hold you to trying to finally get to one. Because a few times you came to Atlanta, we didn't have an event or whatever. So we never got it worked out for you to make it, you know, because we were always talking about getting you to finally make it to an event, and just their timing just never worked out.
Right.
So speaking of events, this Sunday it is invite only. I have a mental dialogue community club connections. It's basically it's a Black online marketplace, dynamic. I introduce you to several Black-owned businesses, dynamic businesses. You can, you know, they'll do a little quick pitch. You'll see them. We'll be on their websites, so we'll get to meet these dynamic Black-owned business owners and online businesses. And then after that, we do an open dialogue about conversations in the Black community. So pretty dope how we do it. Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, pretty early for you all the way out there on the East Coast. But it is invite only. So for anybody that hears this, if you find us at mental dialogue, at mental_dialogue on IG. And if anybody who inboxes me, I will send you the link on Sunday to be a part, because it is an invite only event. So if you inbox me at mental_dialogue, I don't know if I can type that in. I don't know if I'm able to type that in here.
I think you can pin it.
Let me try to put that in there. So this is just our IG. You'll be able to go to that, get to that on Sunday. Every Saturday morning is the Mental Dialogue Talk Show. It's actually live every Saturday, but it's on all the platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean. That's where you hear it after the fact. But if you ever want to catch it live and actually, call into the show, this Saturday I got this amazing queen, who's Deetra White. She's only the second person I've ever had come on we have a series called Conversation with Smart People. So that's the only time I don't have my queens of intellect on. I just do a one-on-one show with them. And Deetra White, she's doing this vaccine project, really delving into the vaccine hesitancy that exists in our community. She's going real deep with it. So I'm bringing that queen up. She's a Howard grad, dynamic sister in this. She's known as the ambush queen. She used to go to businesses and literally help their businesses out on the spot. So that was what she was known for here in the Atlanta area. But now she's moving on to this project. So it'll be an amazing conversation. In the second hour, we're actually doing, I do it every now and then, an open dialogue. So people that call in, we can talk about whatever people want to talk about, whether it's Russell Wilson, Judas and Messiah, whatever people want to talk about. That's where you can call in and talk about the Trump impeachment if you want. You know what I mean? So it's an open hour. So whatever the callers call in and talk about, we can do that on the second hour. And then the last thing I want to mention, if you don't mind, is something that we started about 5 months ago, which was one of the things I'm most proud of, is we have an event that we do. It's via Zoom. Now this is open to everybody. It's not invite only. It's called a community checkup. Y'all all right? And that's where we bring on mental health professionals once a month, the last Thursdays of the month. It's open to everybody. As long as you following us on Mental Dialogue, I don't know how to pin it, but if you follow us, everything I'm telling you about, if you go into the bio, except for the invite-only events, which is most of our events are not. Well, we've done more now. But either way, if everything I'm telling you about, if you go into the bio, the show is going to be there live. It's going to be there after the fact. The community checkup is going to be in the bio on IG. So we got a page. We're still building the page up, mentaldialogue.com, so you can go follow us there. If what I'm saying, you want to become a part of our virtual neighborhood, you can go become a member. There's different levels, different membership levels. But as far as, being on IG, everything's on the bio. So just keep that in mind. The community checkup, mental health therapists, and we literally have dialogues about what mental health looks like, what to expect if you see a therapist. We've gotten people therapy, literally firsthand from, again, I bring on A1 top-notch doctor level therapists for that event. And that's open to anybody in the country, last Thursday of the month or whatever. But obviously just trying to get over the stigmas of mental health in our community. Because as I said from the beginning, we're dealing with the psychology of a people to a degree that are suffering from, some people call it, post-traumatic slave syndrome or whatever. So if that's a real thing, which I do believe it to be a real thing, I think we unfortunately suffer from it unknowingly. And as I always like to say, this country has never allowed us as a collective to get on that couch. If you think about, how they used to say, you get on the couch with the psychologist or whatever, the therapy or whatever. And so what we're doing with this virtual neighborhood is we're that couch. That's what we're ultimately doing.
Wow, that is so good. That is so good. I just want to say thank you so much, for just coming on here and dropping gems, spreading your wisdom, spreading your knowledge, and allowing us to just feed it. Just feeding us. Thank you, and just thank you for your passion too. And allowing and connecting us. And I'm definitely going to make sure remember what he said, y'all. If you are interested in tuning into his projects and everything that he has going on, definitely follow him. Mental_dialogue, correct?
Correct. That's the IG page. You can go to mentaldialogue.com, but like I said, we're still working on that to get everything up on that right now. And so, but that's where, if you want to be a part of our membership and get invites to our exclusive events, because our exclusive stuff is off the chain. If you join at the Black and Platinum level, that's where we have the mastermind. It's a lot of high net worth individuals in there. I'm not saying that alone makes it what's worth it, but we do real high level dialogues on business. We did how to retire tax-free. You really can do that, believe it or not. You know what I mean? We did the Bitcoin thing a few weeks ago or whatever. So we're going to get onto some government contracting. Again, these are the higher levels. So I just encourage you to become a part of what we do. And as you listen to more, hear more shows, eventually you will find a place for you to fit in. And we got experts to help you with anything you need. Literally, that's why we're a virtual neighborhood. If we all got what we need in our neighborhood, we all we need.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. Well, thank you again so much. And I'm proud of you. Congratulations. Keep on doing your thing. I'm excited.
I'm more proud of you.
Huh?
I'm more proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Listen, we doing this. We represent for our people and we doing it. We doing big things. And I'm excited to see you when I come in. And I'll touch base with you for sure so we can go ahead and connect and everything, okay?
Yeah. No doubt. Are you busy at 5 o'clock on Sunday? I'm gonna give you one of them invites.
5 o'clock Sunday. This Sunday, right?
I
don't think I have anything planned.
So maybe I'll see you on Sunday night for the Connections event. It's gonna be dope.
Yeah, just can you send me the invite for sure.
Okay, so yeah. All right, sounds good.
All right, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you again.
Thank you, Queen. It was beautiful.
All right, have a good day.
I appreciate you.
All right.